and not give up too soon. Like you have to stick with it to develop a pattern to know what you're doing. So if you give up before you've developed a pattern, that's where you're selling yourself short. That's where you're hiding. That's where you're letting fear get in, because once the pattern develops, you write the algorithm and you step into the pattern that is already naturally aligned with your gifts in your life. And once you align with that, you cannot align. You cannot go back from it. You're going to die if you.
This is Rise Plus Rebel, a podcast for people who refuse to abandon themselves to fit this world. Here, we talk about solitude, authentic truth, power, money, creativity, and the quiet action that changes everything. This season is about reclaiming what was never meant to be outsourced. Your voice, your intuition, your timing, your authority. I'm Aya Hodja, commercial real estate advisor and the founder of Rise Plus Rebel, and your host. If you're navigating the journey of life, especially when it feels lonely, uncomfortable, or misunderstood, well then, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Today on Rise Plus Rebel, I'm joined by Haven Morningstar, a guide, creative, and soulful presence behind Morningstar Life, whose work invites people into deeper activation, self-remembrance, and connection with their own inner wisdom. Her approach is intuitive, reflective, and deeply personal, and I'm excited to explore her journey and the deeper truths that have shaped her path. Haven, welcome to Rise Plus Rebel.
Hi.
I'm so glad you're here.
Hi.
So tell me about you, because you are such an incredible, magical being, and I know you. I know the listeners don't know you. So please tell them more about who you are.
That is a beautiful question. Hence is why we are here, right? I've been diving into that my whole existence because my name is Haven Morningstar. I was born with this name. And so, I, by essence, am an artist just exploring herself, just like we all are, and all layers and all timelines and all dimensions. And I'm trying to process and integrate my own experiences through the expression of this beautiful name, right? And I'm just me. I'm really here just to be me, whatever that means in any given.
So I love that. And I will also say you are a poet.
Yes.
You are an artiste.
An artist, a artist is what it is. A artist. I work
Artist.
in the heart. Yeah, through art. Yep.
Also, she forgot to mention she owns a business, literal physical business. So she's very humble, I will say that. And I will actually, you have a very unique way of delivering things. And I will just share my experience with you before we really dive into this. So when you first reached out to me, and this was specifically for commercial real estate, this was on your property for your business, and you were like, hey, and you started to shape, like, this is how I visualized, like, this was some rundown, like, commercial space. I was like, oh my God, Haven needs to get out of there. And then about a year later, or a year after that conversation, I came to visit you. This was a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, I remember just was like, Haven lied to me. And it wasn't about lying. It was just like, how humble. It just was very evident about how humble you truly are as a human, as a soul. Because the moment I entered your center, it took me about 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. You were like, are you okay? I was like, no, give me some time. I need to integrate all of this magic that I am feeling. Because I went into this perspective thinking like, wow, this is some like little tiny store that she has. The bathroom is not working. I remember you mentioned that. And a year later, I come in, I'm like, well, this is like the perfect space. It was a perfect location. The store, the center that you had, I spent almost 3 hours there. For those that want to know, I just didn't feel like leaving because I just felt so seen. I felt like it was my charging station. Yeah. That's the best way I could describe your center. So yeah, you're a business owner. And what's another word to like the energy worker? I don't know, but you are so much, Haven, and so much more. then you lead, or kind of like maybe that's your secret. You just kind of don't want people to know how special and powerful you are. Is that what it is?
There's parts, there's layers to it. There is many times where it's a very human existence where you're kind of hiding and you're dipping out. And then there's other times where it's really not what's being called for in that moment, which is generally the case. Like my role is as I step back to step forward. And we work within the spaces in between that aren't always seen by everyone, that aren't always cognized by everyone. And I feel like that is my art and that is my gift. And that is why I am here working in a very specific land. It took me a long time to realize while I was on that property of Shem Creek that Shem angels are very real and that I was so divinely led. If you knew how I was led there, it was life changing.
Could you share,
Yeah,
actually?
yeah.
Please.
So let me just kind of go into this because this is about the business side of all the things and being in really divine alignment with yourself. So I dropped out of high school. I didn't go past like the 10th grade. I was not a high school graduate. And I was told you're never going to be a physical artist. You have to be a graphic artist. This was like back in the 90s. And I was like, F y'all, whatever, like whatever. And then I moved to Japan and I was like really young, like 20 years old or something. And I was married, still am. And all the things. And so I learned graphic arts and I learned like on a 2 gig MacBook hard drive and we would take it apart and partition it and we would do all the things. And my husband's a professional photographer, so he let me use his Photoshop and I learned and I got in and I started doing design work for the military and I did
Wow.
that for 7 years in Japan and England. And then when I moved back to the States, this is where it shifted. I got sold a car and I was like, what? This was so fun. The guy was so good. And I knew I was getting sold and I loved it. And I was like, I want to sell cars. This graphic design here is taking off. It don't pay squat. I was like, I'm out of here. I already did that. Whatever. Y'all young kids can have it. And I was like, I'm going to go sell cars. I love it. I worked for a female car dealership and she was awesome. She was a badass. Her and her husband, I'm still friends with them. And it's amazing. They gave me such a wonderful opportunity. I was promoted rather quickly. I got pregnant and was promoted into finance. And then from there, when we moved here in '08, I worked locally for an amazing local dealership and I did finance and all the things. And then I went to work for a national company and I did leadership development and account acquisition and I became a trusted advisor.
Wow.
And I finished with my company 7th in the nation for finance, just so. I don't know. And I never graduated from high school and I just totally bullshitted my way through it and it worked. It worked. I just trusted myself. So fast forward, I got fired from that job after I excelled and excelled and excelled. And I wasn't really listening to my soul. And their signs were clear. But I wasn't trusting because I was stuck in that narrative of like, I'll get my life together when, like everything, like when all of this aligns, then I can do that. When I save enough money, when I do this, when I do that, when I lose. And it's always this story that never really transpires. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, all right, so the universe said, hey, listen, we're going to fire you after you just won this award and they flew you to Washington, D.C. But all the things, because I carried my gun in my car, my company car, like whatever, so all the things. And so it just needed to work out that way. Now, here, the moment I said, what am I going to do with myself? What am I going to do with myself, right? Like you're just stripping away this identity that I never wanted to begin with. The high
Yeah.
heels, the nails, the upkeep, and you're making good money, but you're paying for everyone else to live your life for you. You're paying other people to clean your house because you're never home. You're paying other people to wash your car. So your output is very great. And so what I learned is it's not what you've got incoming, it's what you've got outgoing. I was like, all right, well, listen, let me turn this around. So I started to really look within myself and I sat and I wrote down the things that I was good at. I did all the things, the Ben Franklin clothes on myself. And I sat down and I listened and I prayed and I was like, all right, what am I going to do? And I was like, I got to do this coaching thing because that's what everybody thinks that they need to do after you're doing like leadership development.
Yes.
It's an archetype. It's very natural. And
It really is. Yeah.
it's really about yourself. It's about
Mhm.
trusting your voice and yourself. And so I realized that very quickly. And I went through all of the synchronicities, all of the experiences, and all of the things. And I said to myself in the inner realm, I'm going to work at this gym, and it's an all female gym because then I can do wellness and I can do yoga and I can do all these things. And, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. So I was a general manager of this gym for like a couple years. And then I got a stalker, a female stalker from a church and all the things. And I had a session. This is where it gets pivotal for me the following day. So I called the police that Thursday. I was breaking down. I was like, I'm out of here. Y'all, this is crazy. The guy said that's what you get for hanging out with people like that, like metaphysical people, people at church. Like what? Whoa. So I just exited. I called the police. I nipped it in the butt. And the following day, I had a quantum healing session with this beautiful woman down the road. Beautiful woman, military wife, just like myself. And I didn't know that. And that to me was trusting. And she said, you need to go to this place. And this, like what next, what now was, you're kind of like in a state of fear and surrender at the same time. And I'm in this like 4 hour, like deep quantum state. And she says at the exact same moment, like my mom came in and she said, oh, Yeshua's here. And I was like, at the same moment, he was in my being. And I was like far beyond a being itself. It was a white diamond light that was put in my temple. And he said to see. And from that moment forward, it was a different kind of navigation. She said, I thought Haven could see already. He said, no, to see. And it's taken me many, many, many years to really know what that means and to see inside of myself and to know that this divinity, that I have purpose and that my talents, right? That I wasn't necessarily hiding them as I had been. Sometimes I do, but
Mhm.
I was developing myself.
Mm.
I was being my own trusted advisor. I was listening to my own intuition. I was
Oof.
building who I was becoming in this very moment. And so I walked on. She said, after everything was done, she said, I need you to go visit this woman, visit this place and visit this property. It's this name charmed, blah, 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 blah. And I walked onto the very land that you walked on. And that was in 2018.
Wow.
And immediately I was like, I assumed. And she gave me an opportunity where I could show up for myself in exchange for. And there was no separation. I treated that as if it was my own. I love it so much. That land was like, it's magical. It's like a secret garden, y'all. You don't even know you walk. There's a courtyard, there's little houses,
Yeah.
there's people that live upstairs, it's fairies, it's beautiful. It's great. And I just became myself. Like for the first time, it was no titles. It was just like, what's your name? And people are like, they think it's fake. Like, can I speak freely? I was a stripper once and I used my real name and people thought I was fake.
Wow, Haven, you have a story. I love it.
So it brings you, right? This alignment. It's not seeking outside of yourself. It is so deep into going within and to really just trusting, right? And I got to learn my voice. And that was when I knew. I was like, I'm working in the realms of telepathy. I'm working in the realms of my throat. And I'm here to step back and to step forward all at the same time because that's what a Venusian does. And
Wow.
I said, whoa, girl, whew, you're not ready to embody this. And I really was like, whoa, you're with talent. What are you doing? And I had
Yeah.
never painted before.
What?
No, I never painted before. I was like, oh, hi, puppy. Here's my puppy.
So adorable.
Hang on. I know. I'm okay. She's like, let me check on you. So I started painting in 2019. This was all around the same time, or 2019, somewhere around there. And I hadn't picked up a paintbrush since I was a kid. And I started painting again. My husband did this whole beautiful thing and led me back home into myself and handed me a paintbrush. And I went into Mars and I just never came back. And it was It was all of my shadow work, all of my trauma, all of my psychic self that I've known since birth, every dream, every moment. Like, what do you do with that? As an empath, as an intuitive, as someone who is very in tune and sentient and live, what do you do with all of that? Because I thought the whole world could hear my thoughts. And it freaked me out because I could hear theirs.
Wow. Can we untap that real quick? Because this is my first time hearing about this. So you heard my thoughts? Tell me more.
About what part?
Hearing the thoughts, because you said something very interesting that I used to think the same way, and then I had to literally have a internal dialogue with myself. So I used to think too, like,
A lot of people will shut it off. Yeah.
well, no, like my belief was that I used to think that other people thought like me.
Mm.
Yeah, and it was very not a grounding experience to realize, nope, no one thinks like you. So you kind of like what you just said, right? Like you thought
I,
they could hear, and
yeah.
then you realized they can't.
Yeah.
So
It was traumatizing.
I bet.
It's traumatizing, like to be that sentient. And I grew up in a Mormon church. So I was baptized Mormon
Okay.
and very safe and I had very beautiful experiences. But I heard, now this is where myself comes in. Virgo. I heard the shadow side of all of that, of it being a Virgo and a Venusian, of judgment, of perfectionism. So now you take someone who's a September baby, who's born under Virgo, who's born under this, who's clairaudient, who has all the things, and you place them within a Mormon church that's really deeply rooted in judgment and perfectionism.
Yeah.
So I heard very early on deep wounds and stories of worthiness, of imperfection, of why am I not like you, and deep, like trying to find myself. Because not only did I hear that, I was named that. I came here as that. So it depends on what part of this lens, how far back because that's a Venusian energy, is self-worth, perfectionism. That's all of those life lessons to come in.
Yeah.
And then you
Wow.
bring it into this life and you're like, whoa. And then you stack it on top of life experiences and you hear, I feel like a lot of, I don't know the right term, so please forgive me, but neurodivergent, or people who are very divergent in their atmospheres, feel that same way, or autism, or anyone who's riding the spectrum of this energy, that they feel the same way, that they thought that everyone could hear. And so it's a sensitive, you monitor yourself, your actions and your reactions and your creative, your soul alignment. You monitor it so closely because it's not out of fear, but so it could be out of fear if you don't know, if you're not in tune with it. But once you get into tune with it, and once you learn to kind of ride the channels, if you will, brings us
Okay.
into now.
So, okay. Like that's a wild, wild story, but yeah, I know you come with a lot of them, and I'm pretty confident you can write a book or like a couple or even films, really. I've heard stories. So you have a lot of them. So with that, like how has doubt and, questioning yourself, like how did that show up in your path of entrepreneurship? And how did you keep moving forward, even knowing that there wasn't any certainty? Like you were stepping into the unknown.
I love to do whatever scares you, do that. Imposter syndrome, big time. Like there's no way that I'm doing these things. But that really took kind of like accepting that doubt is part of this. That is part of it. But also what I did is I learned where I held doubt in my body. And then I went there and I said, well, tell me about you. What do you have to say? What are those moments when you doubted yourself, Haven? What was going on? And I looked at it and I became friends with it. And I said, it's okay. You're going to doubt yourself. but it happens less and less, and that gap gets smaller and smaller and smaller the more you do. So it's about bandwidth. It's more about sustainability and bandwidth of who you are, and allowing yourself practice to just become. And then doubt dissipates and it gets less and less, and it's not even a question. So I didn't really doubt myself a lot.
Good.
There was moments where I did, where I got inverted. I can remember a couple of times, and I didn't trust myself, but I don't think that it was doubt. It didn't come from doubt. It was a different word,
Okay.
different energy.
And what did you do with that energy?
The same thing. Every word I wrote. I didn't graduate high school, so I didn't know. I mean, I literally looked them up. I meditated on them. I slept on them, and I wrote the Akash,
Wow.
my own Akash. I wrote my own oracle. I wrote my own life. I applied it. I was like, what does patience mean? What does this mean? What is that? What does judgment really mean? Let's talk about that one. I can do that one good. Judgment is the other side of discernment. So what would be the other side of doubt? I don't know, but what would it be?
The other side, like the opposite, or what are we talking about? Trust then? Trust, doubt, and
I don't know what it means. I don't really know what doubt means.
that's amazing. And I think doubt is, I mean, it's a fancier word. Maybe it's like a coat, a furry coat covered in fear. Because that's really what doubt is. Like,
It feels like a question.
mm,
Like if I was to think about it right now, like really, if you bring doubt into your atmosphere, it feels like a question. Like I'm questioning this. I'm questioning this. Okay, well, what are you questioning?
so you kind of sounds to me then the way you do anything is you start with a question, you start to dissect,
Hmm.
especially if it's let's just call it what it is, a negative feeling or a not yummy feeling. Okay. And I love that. I love that a lot. So let me ask you this similar question, but now going back to you as an artist, because you mentioned you haven't painted since you were young, and then you came back and started painting in 2019. And before you answer, I just want to can you just showcase your amazing background behind you? Like, this is all you, right?
Yeah, and this is very like natural because I was like, well, where am I going to put all this stuff? Because I had to bring it home because, I'm returning the energy in the center. And so it's not appropriate to have the paintings in there right now because there's other art that needs to step forward. And so I was like, what am I going to do? And then I was like, boop, 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 I'll just take this out of the car and put this here yesterday. And I was like, well, that would work as a pretty background.
It worked beautiful.
So if you don't doubt and you just do, and you just allow yourself to get to a place of trust where you're like, I don't know what the F I'm doing, but I'm just going to do it. It turns out pretty every time.
You are
It's just doubt.
what an influencer. You've inspired me. Just don't doubt yourself and just do the thing. Who cares?
But it
I
takes
love
a
it.
while to get there. You got to step outside. So anyway, go ahead.
No. So, I think this is a really great question. We essentially what we're talking about is alignment versus misalignment, really. So, what does that misalignment feel like right now for you?
For me, really, I I notice it in my body before my psyche. Or I notice it in my psyche, but I feel like in the cycle that I'm in right now, I'm noticing it in my body first. Like my nervous system is so sensitive that it'll start if I'm around someone that I know that we don't have any kind of like I won't even engage in it. Like she just redirects me. She's like, "Oh, it's my body as it tells me right now." That's how I know. And it could be a variety of different ways, but typically like I can feel like the waves go like I think we all can. Like your heart starts beating, you're kind of like, like your scalp starts tingling.
Mm-hmm. No,
Yeah.
I think I love that. So I agree with you in that I think we all have some form of the ability to really tune into our intuition, to our body. I also have, at least within myself, witnessed when my body says one thing and my mind says the other, right?
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes it could be a challenge because you don't know who's right. How do you decipher?
Drop into the heart.
Hmm.
Right. So lower mid world, upper world, and middle worlds.
Okay.
You bring it back into the breath and back into the heart. And I watch my actions. What are my actions telling me? Because a lot of times I'm very like, I'm in tune, but I'm very in tune with like an octopus, like the other parts of me operating all at the same time. And so Haven, my lower self, might not always be aware because I've allowed my higher self to operate and do what she needs to do. I've allowed my lower self to do what she needs to do. And because I'm trusting, I'm like, go, sister. So sometimes it takes me just a minute to be like, and if I've let it get to my head, I've let it get way too far. And typically I've ignored the signs that I already know are there. And I'm like, girlfriend, you done knew you only have yourself to be upset with right now. If I've let it get up here, but you have to. And so it's neither good or bad because it's all relative to the now. And so you have to allow yourself to go through those tumbles and those insecure moments. I know insecurity. I do know that one very well. And worthiness and lack of patience and go like I'll invert myself all day long if I know that I've got something that I need to do and I need to push through. I'm like, okay, let's go, Haven. Let's dive down. Go. And then I'll just bring it right back up.
I love that. So you've been pretty much in tune for a while with yourself then, from the sounds of it.
The exact moment that I remember knowing that I was 6 years old. I knew I practiced my signature. I have books. Everybody from school can tell you. Haven would come around and be like, I'm going to sign this for when I'm rich and famous. And like practice my signature. And, whatever that means, who cares?
Yeah.
But really, it was me writing my book. I remember knowing like you're going to write a book. And I go, I know, but I have to grow up first. And I was like, my name is Haven Morningstar. And I could never get past that because I had to live and play out the story that I was creating of who I was and put words to something that there's no words to.
Yeah.
There's no words to the depths of my soul. How could you even?
I feel that. I feel that. I had to take a pause, take a deep breath. It's beautiful. So, Haven, it sounds to me like your life is your art.
Yeah. That is what it meant to be me. And so diving into my name and what that meant to me in this here and now, in this, it could mean all the things of why people choose to have that as their stage name to begin with. A safe place in the Venusian energy, whatever you want it to be. But for me, it meant I needed to create. I needed to express my worlds because they had something to say. And I didn't even know what that was, but it was just the experience of being alive and the experience of being here and the experience of being now and being like, I don't know what the fuck is happening, but it's happening and I'm going to do it. So the art was feathers. I started making dream catchers in the park when I was a teenager after I dropped out of high school in Olympia, Washington. And I don't know where it came from, but I started weaving with the hoop and the thread and the feathers. So the painting is just an expression that I can use for a visual because not everybody wants to hear my words. Most of the time they turn away.
Wow.
They don't take it seriously. They look, but they don't want to look too close because it requires them looking at themselves. And so I just became whatever I needed to be for myself and how I needed to navigate through my worlds. And it's storytelling. And that is the art. It's the art of story. It's a very deep, old medicine. And I use various modalities, crystals, feathers. Oh, I love driftwood is my favorite, right? We could use wire. We could use napkins. We can use all the things. This is napkins right here. I made this when I was a kid. It's a little box. And then you just glue. So and then I had this on my desk when I was in finance with my pens in it. And so whatever, it's been with me for 20 or 30 years.
Wow.
It's just fun. Who cares if you could tootle all day long and you could be whatever you wanted to be? Why not be that?
Yeah.
Where brilliance and magic happens. So where does that happen for you?
Oof.
Ooh.
I mean, I can resonate a lot with what you were saying, but I will say my journey has been more about conforming and really fitting into the box that the society has deemed normal, you know? And so I came from that culture myself where you're a Turkmen woman, you're supposed to act which is basically follow the rules, keep your mouth shut, and don't speak your mind. And I'm the opposite of that. And so I had to adapt into this society, into this culture. And I will say this, I'm really good at acting now. I think yeah, I'm really, really good at performing. So like when I'm doing marketing or I'm selling, I can turn it on and I can become this person. But and I've said this in the past too, like acting still requires authenticity. You can't just be
Right.
pretending.
Is it really acting?
Exactly. Like acting, if you're pretending, you can really see it. So you really have to be yourself regardless. I'm not saying I was fake or anything like that. It's just I learned how to adapt. I'm an adaptable person. But what I've learned, at least I've been on my spiritual journey for the last 7 years, maybe 8 years now. And what I've learned is that life just gets so much easier when you are literally in tune with yourself versus when you try to adapt, when you're trying to fit yourself in a certain box. And so you were talking about how, you haven't graduated high school and whatnot. I do hear a little bit of some form of insecurity, and I want you to shift that perspective and realize that's your power move. You basically said, nah,
Yes.
nah, nah, homeboy, I ain't doing this. I'm
Well,
not
you know
going
what
to
I did?
conform.
This is what I did. I actually painted. I have painted before, so it's just not been since I was a kid. I left in the 10th grade, and then I went and they were opening this alternative school. I can't remember if it was on the reservation or off, but it was very like on the borderline. And it was the school, we named it Middle Earth. And so I dropped out of school and I went to Middle Earth and I designed like the mural, and I don't know. And that was the first moment that I had with a kid who had kinesitic, like he could move things with his eyes and throw things off the shelf. Yeah, and so then I was done there. And so it's not for naught. I think that fitting in the norm has its place. Like that's exactly what we're here to do. Like you just explore all these different spaces and they move and they shift. And I needed to go into that normal type of career field for myself to bring me to the now. Otherwise, how could I be an artist and run my spiritual practice
Yeah.
and be alive in myself and do my art, y'all? Like I have a for real business where people walk in every day. You have to send out a thank you. You have to do this. I don't do marketing or any of that crap, but I mean, you got to do things. You have to do taxes. Like,
No, I love how you called it marketing and that crap. Like that's literally my background.
it's
That's why I
literally my
love.
background too. I love it. I love
Nice, nice.
it off on it.
Yeah.
But when you align with that crap, when you align with it, I can dream it and bring it in. And so I hear every day who's coming in, and I sit with myself way early in the morning, and I know I'm like, okay, this is going to come in. I'm going to do this. Sometimes the crystals tell me I'm going to sell myself today. And so it's it's live. And every one of those moves, just like you're saying, fitting into society, like not graduating high school and then go working for a company who requires a full-on resume, who does all these brain tests and personality tests before you can even get an interview. And like doing all of that, yeah, and it's imposter syndrome because you're like, how the fuck how'd I pull that off? How'd I pull that off? Well, guess what? I believed in myself. I said, I don't know a lot, but I know I can act.
And there you go. So take acting classes, y'all.
You have a whole stage. It's called your life.
That's
Try
right.
it out and try it on. And if you don't like it, try the fuck again. Use my language, but no, just try again.
I think that's the best business 101 tip ever. Because really, like, it's all trial and error regardless of what you do.
Exactly.
So you might as well go for it. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Right. And not give up too soon. Like you have to stick with it to develop a pattern to know what you're doing. So if you give up before you've developed a pattern, that's where you're selling yourself short. That's where you're hiding. That's where you're letting fear get in because once the pattern develops, you write the algorithm and you step into the pattern that is already naturally aligned with your gifts in your life. And once you align with that, you cannot align. You cannot go back from it. You're going to die if you do. You're going to get sick if you do. If you step back from that, you're in pain. You're in sorrow. You're in sadness. You're in your own purgatory, if you will.
So it's such a good point because another thing that to add to what you just said is imagine if you are like if your talent is literally like asking for your attention, your passion is asking for it, your destiny is literally asking you to give it attention and you're doing the opposite. It's the same thing as what you just said.
You're
You're in
denying
jail essentially.
You're denying yourself. You are denying your innate divine birthright that says, love me. I want to step into me. I want to align with my soul as a full expression. Right hemisphere, left hemisphere, heart as a full expression of my whole being. And when you don't do that, you by then are creating a pain body, and you by then are creating a narrative, and you by then are choosing to stay in a victim victimizer mode. And that's the reality of it. It's not even your programming then, because Maya Angelou says, once you know better, you do better. And that's what that is. You know. And when you know and you don't do, you ain't got nobody but yourself
It's
to
true.
look at.
That was powerful. Haven, one last question for you. What would you say to someone who feels called to begin, evolve, pivot, just follow that intuition, but they keep on waiting for certainty before taking action?
All the things we just said, I would say, listen to this podcast.
That's right.
Listen to this podcast and not only listen with your ears, but listen to your heart, right? Because you know who you are. You know that you're with gift. You know that you're something special. So whatever happened or happens is irrelevant until you step into it. So give yourself the opportunity to become it fully and develop your own integrity for yourself. Like, what does that mean for you? Is develop your, what's the right word? Your, not rules of engagement, but I did that.
Intuition?
No, I did it for myself. Like, this is my value, my statement for myself. So, what does my name mean to me? Who am I? Right? Your mission statement for yourself, that I'm honoring the authenticity, that vulnerability that comes with it. I'm being empathetic to myself and to the world around me, and I'm going to nourish it with everything that I am, and that is Haven. Honoring authenticity. Be vulnerable, be empathetic, and nourish the F out of it because you're worth it, and that is you. And if you don't give yourself that chance, then what are you doing?
It's beautiful, Haven. Thank you so much for sharing your love, your time, your energy, your wisdom with me as well as the listeners. Is how can they reach out to you? I know one of many ways that you guys can support if you are local to the South Carolina area, please visit the Haven, the Center for Healing Hearts in Mount Pleasant, and I highly encourage and recommend for everybody who is in South Carolina to go visit immediately, especially if you want to be recharged.
I'm so in alignment that my phone is not on. You just got to come or just get on Morningstar.life and find my cell phone number and text me or just show up. There's no appointment. There just is, you all. That's where I'm at right now. So just come. If you feel called, then show up in whatever capacity that you decide to show up in, and don't worry about it. That's it.
It's you've gotta experience Haven in person because you are a full-on experience, and I'm just so honored and so grateful that you've shared your space with me today this morning. So thank you so much, Haven.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just so honored. Just what a gift.
You are a gift, and you've gifted your presence to me. So thank you.
Thank you.
If something in this episode landed, stayed with you, or stirred something honest inside, please let me know. You can find me at www.risewithaya.com. That's where everything lives, the podcast, my writings, and ways to connect. So I'd love for you to follow me on social media and tell me what you want more of. That can be topics, questions, or conversations you're craving. Rise Plus Rebel isn't just a podcast. It's a community built around truth, presence, and becoming your authentic self. So until then, don't rush your journey. Honor every moment of it.